I'm having all kinds of technical problems this morning. So let me know if you can hear me and see me well enough. I seem to be off color. My webcam has a mind of its own. Yeah, okay, one thumbs up is probably all we get this morning. So the vagaries of live streaming. I was trying to think of an analogy of what my experience is doing this, and have you ever seen these pictures of like a cockpit of a 747 or a passenger airliner? There's about that many gauges and switches that have to be attended to and set or something for everything to go right. Uh, and just about at a stage where I can swap out the web camera for a camera that has better manual control. So I might be able to eliminate some of the uncertainty in the production. So I was all excited this morning because I finished putting together that little video, which people that tuned in early had a chance to see. We had this wonderful thunderstorm, a couple days ago. I believe it was Sunday. And I was out just listening to the rain and drinking in the experience of change, because it had been this beautiful sunny day, and I'd heard that there was supposed to be a big storm coming, but hadn't really checked the weather and thought maybe it had missed us or maybe I was wrong or something. And then this thunderstorm came in. I guess it was late afternoon, and so I was outside just listening to it, and I saw something that looked like a little dog running through the forest on the hill just in front of me. And it was our fawn. We have a doe and a fawn. They spend a lot of time around here. I think they're sleeping on the upper part of the property. And so I got my camera out and filmed them, and then edited together a little clip of that. I was nearly ready for you yesterday, but just as I was about to finish it, the classic computer experience of your program crashing and not having saved your work happened to me. There are those who have lost and those who will lose when it comes to such things. So, and it was already past my bedtime, so I put it away and then was able to do it yesterday. And somehow, I don't know, that living close to nature is just such a joy, and spending time in nature is such a joy. And, given everything that's going on today, I recommend people take the time to pull yourself away from the screens and the news, and go out into nature. It speaks to us in a way, heals us in ways. And one of the most striking things in that clip is the rain. It's just pouring down. The sky darkens really quick. The rain's pouring down. The thunder's coming. The lightning's flashing. And the deer are completely at ease. The little bit of the clip that didn't get in there is because the focus wasn't right. Was the deer was shaking off all the rain on him at one point. So he's adjusting to the conditions, and I'm sure he's not perfectly comfortable, but at least from the outside, he doesn't seem to be making the same kind of story that I would about a spell of bad weather or extreme weather. I'll play it tomorrow again so people have another chance to see it, but the thunder was so strong that you can see the camera shake when the thunder hits. So, and it's this amazing contrast of darkness and loud, frightening sounds even, and yet a mother and its newborn fawn, and the fawn's prancing around and they're eating, and the mother's caring for it, and it's this amazing contrast between something strong, loud, scary, and something tender and speaking of the renewal of that's there in life and in nature. I'm thinking a bit about this simile that we talked about quite a while ago now, the four great mountains closing in on us. And it's a good encouragement to be careful about your attention and your priorities in a time like this. There might even be more than four mountains moving in from the north, south, east, west. Maybe one's falling on us from above and one's erupting below us right now. There's, of course, the virus. There's, of course, great political disruption and concern, international movements, economic fears, the ever-present, ever-evolving uncertainty and tragedy of the global pandemic. It's a good time not to get distracted from what's truly important and revisit that simile of the four great mountains. And if you remember, what's the king's answer? Like, he understands the limitation of the world and merely trying to fix the world. And he doesn't sink into lamentation or anger or despair. Instead, he turns to the Brahma Viharas, to keeping sila, and developing his mind. So, and I was just thinking the other day, about just reflecting on the fragility of life, and what if I was to get sick, let's say with the coronavirus, and die, even though I'm not in the most risky age group. It's probably statistically very unlikely, but still very much a possibility for anyone. I thought, how would I feel about how I'm spending my time right now? And on some level, I'd feel pretty good, because I'm doing those things. I'm spending a portion of my day caring for my mind and body, just in the physical sense, trying to keep myself exercised, fed, rested, and not get overly stressed out. And I'm attending to my practice, and my practice here with the fellow monks at the monastery, and my broader community and my family, and then doing this with all of you. So kind of trying to share my own interest in this path of practice, and my own curiosity about how it is that we can put into practice these precious teachings of the Buddha, for the betterment of ourself, our families, our communities. So what more can you do? To me, it seems a skillful approach. So let's see, we had I saw a question early on here. I was not really able to follow the chat too closely early on because all the technical problems. But let's see if many things are not working here. We have a question relay here. So thank you, June. Question from a viewer, Ken S., who can't use the chat. Could you speak to walking in nature versus formal walking meditation? I like this question. So I think both are good, and both have merits to them. But I mostly speak about formal walking meditation because so few people are familiar with the practice. And also similar to any formal meditation, you really need to make some sort of commitments and draw some delineations and apply yourself in a more careful way than you would if you're just walking in nature. And that can have tremendous benefit. And so, I wouldn't neglect doing either. And of course, the injunction is to apply the practice as broadly as we can into our life, each and every moment, really, if you can. Applying the teachings on right effort. But it's interesting. I've done various experiments where I've tried to contrast them because sometimes I have competing desires. I'd like to do some formal walking meditation, but I'd also like to spend some time out on a hike or out in nature. And although this might differ for people, like I really think that uh, walking in nature lacks some of the strength of having a dedicated formal walking meditation practice. There's a simplicity of having a dedicated space, and you just don't have to think about how far am I going to go? Am I going to turn left or right? When am I going to turn around? And there's a little less of the diversity of what one experiences when they're walking through a natural landscape, or especially walking in the human-built environment. If you're really out in the wilderness and you're unlikely to encounter somebody, that's great. That completes physical solitude, what the Buddha calls kaya viveka, which is a good condition. And you definitely want to seek places where you can do your walking meditation, where you can get this sense of seclusion. It's not always easy in our houses and even in our living circumstances, but if you can, it's nice not to have to think about others and be even stimulated by encountering other people, or even, being concerned that someone might see you and think, what are they doing over there? They're walking awfully slow. They're not walking in a normal way. So if we can set up a formal place where we have kaya viveka, I think you'll get the fullest benefit of that, having a dedicated place where you're walking. Now that could be out in nature. But what I'm contrasting here is like going on a hike or just walking on trails slowly, as opposed to having a fixed place where you're walking back and forth and developing your meditation. And if we contrast this with some of the benefits of sitting meditation, it's the least conditional posture. Like if we have good posture, we're centered and the body's comfortable enough, there's a lot that we can let go of that we can't let go of when we're standing. There still has to be some attention to balance, and also I've experimented with long periods of standing meditation, and it's difficult for it to be as comfortable as sitting meditation can be for a long period of time. Certain tension and stress builds up in the body in the standing posture over time. Whereas you can sit for hours, especially if the mind is in a state of serenity. You can even sit for days if the mind's in deep serenity. And I don't think you can stand for that long. So, uh, there's something about seeking an environment and conditions that are as simple as possible and that allow us to uh, sort of remove concern for various things so that we can turn more deeply inward. And if you have a dedicated space that you feel comfortable in and there's a sense of solitude, and you have a clear focus for your meditation practice, you can develop a profound sort of focus internally. You can even do very subtle forms of meditation in the walking posture, um, like breath meditation, with the breath being very refined and requiring a lot of concentration to track. You can also, I've even done a lot of walking meditation with my eyes closed. When you know your walking space well enough, you literally can just close your eyes and walk back and forth. And sometimes it's very inviting to do so because the mind just wants to pull in to the internal experience of the meditation. So there's also value in habits. And so if you have a place that you practice regularly, a dedicated place, you're making things easier for yourself. Uh, it's like something in our minds and maybe even in our bodies adjusts and is good at developing habits and wholesome conditions. There's associations that come up. So this is why it's nice to have a shrine and a dedicated place where you practice sitting and walking meditation, regular times. And is it necessary? No, but without that, you're making things at least a little bit harder on yourself than they could be. So now, walking in nature, that of course has other benefits. Like one, you're outside, and I imagine many people don't have dedicated walking meditation spaces outside. So you're getting some fresh air, maybe some sunlight, um, and exposure to the natural environment, which has its own benefits. Uh, and especially if you get out of the human-built environment and you're in nature and in the wilderness, um, there's something about that is, uh, it's not always soothing, but there's something about that that's very a fertile environment for Dhamma practice. And the Buddha and Ajahn Chah and many of the forest Ajahns um, strongly strongly encourage practicing in nature. One, it helps give us a kind of perspective that the human-built environment um, lacks or doesn't invite. So, um, and I experience all kinds of different sensations in nature just quite naturally. I mean, one, it's it's funny. It's like nature doesn't care that I'm there in a sense. Mm, and I don't know if that's the best. I'm maybe not able to communicate this in the best way, but there's a kind of indifference there that is humbling and chips away at the self-obsession and the sense of self-importance that atta kind of creates in the mind. Uh, it doesn't seem to respond to my likes and dislikes in the same way that other people do in the human-built environment. So, and it's so, if you really spend a lot of time in nature, especially trying to practice in nature, it's so indifferent to your comfort. uh, your desires, like your desire not to be disturbed by ants, mosquitoes, and little critters. And sometimes nature can be incredibly noisy and incredibly distracting. Um, I'm sure we've all had moments of great peace and serenity and have felt comfort and soothed by nature. But if you really spend a lot of time trying to practice in the natural environment, it's very challenging. It's, it's hard to find a comfortable place to sit for very long. Um, and the other creatures of the forest, they have an alternative agenda. Um, it's not like they all align themselves to salute you and support you in your practice endeavor. So, but I like that question, and my encouragement is to know for yourself, to practice for yourself as well. So, do some comparison and contrast there, and see what you find useful. And I find both useful, but in summary, I, I encourage people not to neglect the value of formal walking meditation. Shelley, Ajahn, do you have advice for people who are out in the world taking a stance on the racism? There were 500 people in Hood River last night and 200 in White Salmon the day before. People with good hearts. Yeah, well, I don't really want to spend this time dwelling on such things. I think everyone has enough of that. And I don't know that I can say anything all that wise. Um, I was thinking about it this morning a little bit myself. And, something that comes to mind, because most people are drawn, most of my friends are drawn to doing something about it. And that's well and good. But don't just do something about it. Like that's what many people will either not do anything about it or do something about it. Few in the world are the people that are both doing something about it as well as changing their own hearts. Like really, people with good hearts, people deepening their own their own ability to overcome greed, hatred, and delusion in themselves. And you really need to do both. Many places in the suttas where the Buddha talks about the cultivation of loving kindness, or maybe it's not many, but there's several places. He makes a point. This isn't just to be practiced on the cushion, but that's high leverage work. Spending time in solitude and with the best of supports, cultivating loving kindness and compassion and equanimity. But also it is to be practiced in speech and deeds in the world. So, and I think maybe some people are confused about that. They think about it in an overly binary way, as if the encouragement and endeavor to work on the mind through our practices somehow sits in opposition to bringing that quality into the world, and I don't see it that way. And the Buddha encourages to pay attention to both both ends of the spectrum, both the internal and the external. So Holly, good morning. What are ideas for two lay kalyanamittas to take up the practice of speaking about transgressions against Buddha Dhamma Sangha on the lunar observance days? So this is a question that comes up from time to time. And just to give it context for other people that are on the stream here or watching this later, maybe, in the monastic Sangha, we have a regular practice of gathering the community, like any given Sangha lives in an area or lives in a monastery, once every fortnight. So on the new moon and the full moon days, the monastic community is charged with coming together to review their conduct, and if they have any transgressions against the communal standards and the monastic discipline, known as the Vinaya, they're to confess that to another monk, or if it's very serious, it needs to be confessed to the whole community and dealt with. And then there is a recitation of a rule summary. And in conversation with many lay friends over the years, that's something that appeals to people, like this ability to sort of meet with kalyanamittas, friends, that one has a shared interest in developing their spiritual life and being able to acknowledge unskillfulness or faults. And there's not really a form that's talked about in the suttas, to my knowledge, for lay people to do something, but it's a perfectly wonderful practice. Some of the monks in the monastery, especially the younger monks in the early stages of their training, will pair up with a friend of theirs, a peer, and meet sometimes even every day. Or I've even heard monks meeting in the morning and evening time or something, just to kind of go over as a way to kind of heighten the mindfulness, because when you first enter the Sangha, there's a lot to learn about the monastic discipline. And it's taken quite seriously in the forest monasteries and the Ajahn monasteries. So there's a fairly exhaustive study of not just the major rules, but the minor rules and derivative rules that exist. And literally, they number in the thousands if one pays attention to the details. And many of them are really of great use in learning about your mind and sharpening your discernment and your mindfulness, learning about your intentions and your habits. They unearth how it is that unskillful intentions thread their way into your mind and your experience. Um, so by having some commitment to various communally shared standards, it exposes your greed, or exposes sometimes your attachment to having things your own way or views. So it unmasks your own proclivity to maybe speak in hurtful ways. Some of the rules deal with that, and so this could be a really good practice for people if they're interested and they have a good friend or two that they have enough of a shared commitment to practice and a shared standard of taking on precepts, and it heightens mindfulness. Also, there's something there's something, it stimulates one's hiri and ottappa, um, not just to be dealing with this ongoing effort to sort of improve one's life in this dimension, but to actually meet with another person and review it, or acknowledge some sort of unskillfulness, and the form that we do is not. It's very simple. One just confesses. There's like 4 categories of offenses, and what we've evolved in our Western branch monasteries in the Ajahn Chah tradition is usually after paying respect to each other, we dress like in our full robes, and this is done before our recitation of the rule summary comes. Every monk needs to pair off with another monk, and the junior bows to the senior. They both bow to the shrine, then the junior bows to the senior, and then one of them will chant the Namo Tassa, and then if there's any outstanding transgressions or unskillfulness that they need to confess, usually they will just confess that, and the other person just listens. There's no commentary that needs to happen. You're just expressing and revealing, I made this transgression, I acted in this way that was unskillful. And many of the monks, even if it's not a transgression of the rule, but there's something that has caused a sense of regret or remorse, or sometimes they've made an extra determination to rise to a certain standard for themselves and they're not meeting that, they'll express that. And the other person just listens respectfully. And then once they've done that, then they go through a formal confession for anything that might have been done or that they weren't mindful of, because it's possible to break some of the rules without awareness. So, and then it's a good time just to reflect on your commitment to this ancient sort of monastic code, but also the communal standards that we're all trying to sort of practice and share. And it heightens that sort of determination. It refreshes one's commitment to that shared standard and helps clean sort of any lingering obsession. And one wants to live in a way, and I would say the whole of the path and the whole of the encouragement, one wants to live in a way that is free of clutter. And so we need skillful means to kind of resolve the past, and some practice of acknowledging a mistake or fault with the aim of getting over it, learning what you can, making a fresh determination to do better or not to make the same mistake, and then letting go of it. And karma will take care of it. There will be karmic ramifications for whatever unskillfulness that is done, but one needs to release oneself from obsessing about the past, and try to return to the present moment and one's determination to sort of live in a more skillful way. And so having something like this could be very good. If you don't have a friend to do this with, you could just do this on your own. It might be nice to make a little ritual out of it rather than just let it be softly said in your mind. If you have a shrine or something, you could devise some sort of ritual for yourself where maybe twice a month on the new moon and full moon, or maybe once a month, you just take a moment before, say, you do your normal chanting and meditation in the evening, or your meditation, and just reflect on your conduct, and in particular, speech and action. And is there anything that gives cause for remorse, or is there any transgression against your understanding of the precepts and the virtues that one is striving to sort of enact in their life? And if so, then you can just acknowledge that, and maybe to do so out loud, like, and we have almost the same, I think, efficacy as revealing it to another, not quite the same, but there's something about saying it, making it explicit, clear, concrete, um, and just like acknowledging it, and then making a determination to do better, and then let go of it consciously. Okay, done. Move forward. There might be remorse that arises in connection with it in the future, but try to make a determination just to let go of it and move on and not obsess about that, and to stay focused at doing better. So, okay, I've kind of lost track of time here. So let's wrap this up for today. Hopefully the webcam will be cooperating a bit more tomorrow. But good to see you all, and glad we have this time together every morning to sort of reflect and encourage one another. So have a good day, and we'll see you all tomorrow.